Ready? You want to start? You want me to start? I was about to say it's church in the morning, but that's all I was wrong, is that? So, I was with you last time, so it's good to meet some of you. I'm Pastor Chris Mankey. Was at St. Matthew's for 24 years. Now I'm the executive director for Outreach for Hope, starting my 5th year there, so time goes quickly. So it's good to be with you. We have Jan Reinhardt on Zoom. Wave, Jan. Can everybody see Jan? Everybody's waving back at you. We can't hear her, so she'll do sign language. It'll all be good. So, it's just nice to kind of keep reintroducing ourselves so everybody gets to know each other a little bit and say a little bit about yourself, what you're excited about maybe going on this trip. So we'll start off as leaders. Chris Mankey again. I've done this trip before, but I'm always excited to do this. Traveling is something I love, and I'll put my back to the camera. And it's gonna be really cool because I haven't done this with Paul before. So having an expert and someone that just is really all the way along, giving us all sorts of wonderful information.
So you think.
So with a touch of humor, it's always fun. So I'm excited about that. Introduce yourself.
I'm Paul Bolden, my wife, daughter, we did this trip in 2008, so we're very happy about it. What I'm really looking forward to is sitting on a bus and watching stuff go by.
You do.
Okay, I've done this trip a few times, and the first time I did this trip was with Paul. And Paul is actually the one to give credit for this trip. Because he's the one that we talked, let's do it. He did Israel, he was so excited about doing the trip to Israel. What can we do now? And so this was the birth of the Israel trip, in one step further. And including Prague and Krakow was probably the thing that was unique about a Muslim trip. And that's okay, but it's just, really?
Yeah.
Is this for their benefit or their benefit?
You've used microphones before, yeah.
All of us.
It's for their benefit, so they can hear the people that are missing the meeting.
So anyway, yeah. I'm looking forward to it because the excitement from me and feeling the excitement from everyone else and seeing what excites people, seeing what's new for them that they never expected. And so you just have to show how excited you are and I'll really be happy about that. Okay, who's next?
Pass it around. The talking stick is coming around.
Hello, I'm Frank Renfrey, and I am a retired social studies teacher and administrator in Washington schools. And I'm excited about the trip because I'm learning more about the history of Europe. Thanks to Betty Grunwald's book about Prague. Soon I have to read it. So I look forward to traveling with some great people and learning a lot about the history of Europe and the first steps.
I am super great. But, and I echo what my husband said, we're excited about traveling and Betty and Dave, and all of our seat marks, people have gotten us, and our dear friend Diane have gotten us very excited about joining them on this trip. So look forward to a new adventure. Never been there before. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Hi, I'm Samantha Goldrin. I belong to them. I did this trip 15 years ago, and it was my first ever trip overseas, one of my first times on an airplane. And I'm looking forward to going back as a more seasoned traveler and feeling more comfortable to just go wander around and see stuff, because that's my favorite part of traveling. I'm number 3. And I've also been there before, but I'm looking forward to being there again and because it's been so long and I love to travel. So.
I'm Pat Gardner, and my husband Charles. We're going on a trip for different reasons. I'm going because I love being moved. Even though I love moving. But it's looking forward to all the tradition and history and being back with so many of you that I got to know last summer. And just enjoy it still. Oh, I fly every once in a while, just thinking of our fun and our experiences.
Said I had a different reason? Well, one reason is my friend just got back from Prague. And he's back in Santa Fe, but he's a Waukesha High School grad. And he just kept sending me pictures of him drinking beer. That's the reason.
Did we tell you that you can't drink beer on this trip? Did we? Because that would be wrong. That's right, yeah.
Anyway, I trust that there's a few more beers left, you know.
We're going in October, so it should be good.
History, traveling and architecture and Europe and exploring and all that good stuff. I've been to Prague and Berlin before, but I've never done a Luther specific tour, so I'm looking forward to that angle of it.
Hi, I'm Chris Anderson. I did the trip also with Karen, Sam, and Gail before. Loved it. I'm glad this opportunity came up because it was one of the best trips I've ever done. I love the towns, Wittenberg and so on. Berlin, it's okay. It is a great trip. You will enjoy every moment. And Paul is very good. He loves Martin Luther.
Hi, I'm Linda Google. I've been to Germany and Prague, but I've not been to this one. And I love Martin Luther too. But I lost my passport in Alaska, so I might be going. And my sister's going.
The passports are moving really quickly these days. I got mine in a week. Haven't you really? That doesn't sound right, so.
But it's not.
Okay, good. That's right.
I'm Terry Plum, and I went on the Israel trip, and Patrice was my roommate then, and she's gonna be my roommate now. And I love traveling, and I'm just really looking forward to it. I've never been to Israel. Or Prague.
I'm pretty friend of mine, and I was on the Israel trip with these guys. And I'm really looking forward to seeing old Europe, and I've never, so I love the architecture and history, so I'm really looking forward.
I'm in the middle, which way do I face? Yeah. I'm Dave Gromwald, and we're part of the St. Mark's contingent. I've never been to this part before. When I was in the service many years ago, we couldn't go to East Europe, and then we flew into Frankfurt a couple times because I was in the Air Force. So I'm looking forward to the Krakow, the Poland, and the Martin Luther part of it. Being a lifelong Lutheran, makes sense, right? And Marty drank beer, so right? Made beer, right?
I'm Don Hintz. I'm a member here at St. John's. I love history and geography. And in early April, the Davises, who were and have been for many years our Amtrak train partners traveling, said, "It is time for you to get out of the condo. We're going on this trip." And I said, "We?" And they said, "Yes, we." Here I am.
Excellent.
My husband Bob and I'm Karen. We went on a trip last year to Greece and Rome, Turkey, and it was a phenomenal experience. We learned so much about St. Paul and saw so much fantastic history. And this is going to be an opportunity for us to see again something brand new, part of our faith beginnings, and a whole different part of history and archaeology. And don't have enough words to express how excited we are.
I'm Diane Powell, and I'm very excited about going to Europe again. I've been to Germany and some of these countries, but not to any of these cities. So I can't wait, and I love old Europe. It's beautiful.
Hi, I'm Karen Hanford. I'm very much looking forward to being in this part of Germany. I have never been in this area of Germany. And I've been reading up on Martin Luther, and it's going to be so much fun, and I can hardly wait to get more information on him and getting to know some of you. So I'm looking forward to it very much.
I'm Mary Ann Sindelar, also from St. Mark's in Waukesha, and I'm really looking forward to it too. These two guys did a marvelous job on the trip that we went last summer, so I'm really looking forward to it too.
Those two guys you're talking about, right? Those two guys.
Betty Drumwell, him, he belongs to me, I guess, although we don't sit together.
Ah,
Reason for it, but we're looking forward to this a lot. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you wonderful people, and we're looking forward to traveling together with our friends from St. Mark's, and we have been reading several books about Prague and of course Martin Luther, and just really looking forward to seeing what we've been reading about, what we've known about, and the beauty of the countries.
I'm Dale Winston. I've been to Germany before, never been to Poland. And so my friend Gail has convinced me that this is the place to be in October. So we're going to try Lutherland.
Hi, my name is Dave Cole, and Cheryl and I are from Madison. This is our third trip with this group, so I've really enjoyed meeting you all, and we'll see you. I was really pleased, and I'm sure this is gonna sound strange, but to see Auschwitz. I think that is gonna be just, I don't know how to describe it. I've been to the Holocaust Museum a few times. If you've been to that, you just kind of walk out of that just mesmerized. I can't imagine what Auschwitz will be like, but anyway, so that's gonna be in a weird sort of way, a highlight of the trip for me.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Frazier, and I'm very excited to go on this trip. We have traveled with the 3 leaders now, our third trip, and I'm excited to reconnect with some of you that we've traveled with before and meet new people. Dave and I were in Prague last year and loved it, so we're very excited about going back to Prague, and I've never been to Germany, so that'll be exciting too.
Hi, I'm Barb Reed, and I've been to Israel with these guys a couple of times. Chris once, and I love traveling with them because they know so much. And I'm just looking forward to learning everything because I've never been to any of these places. It'll all be new. I'll love it, yes.
all right. You can pull that off and flip it on.
I'll let you. Very good.
You won't break it. Okay. We dress each other.
Yes. Let's start with our gracious Lord, as we look forward to the pilgrimage of faith. We pray that you will be with us as a group. You will give us safe travels. You will help us to get to know one another better, to enjoy one another's company, that we may grow in our knowledge of our faith and our closeness with you. Be with us as we take now 2.5 months getting ready. May we have a wonderful experience. All this we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Well, after all your comments about Luther, I'm not talking about Luther at all tonight. But tonight I'm going to talk about what we'll see earlier in the trip. I'm going to talk about the beautiful city of Krakow, Poland, and the horrible, terrible place called Auschwitz-Birkenau, and then which is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. So Chris is, I'm going to go like this, and he's going to move the slides we hold. Again, on our trip, we are going to be starting in Poland, in southwestern Poland, traveling through the Czech Republic, and then we will be in the eastern part of Germany. All the sites, all the Luther sites are in what used to be East Germany. So that's the basic area where we'll be traveling, right? And we're going to go to Krakow, first stop. We're looking forward to this because when we took this trip in 2008, when we flew to Krakow, it was fogged in and we couldn't land. So we were diverted to Warsaw and spent the entire day on a bus traveling through Poland, which Sam absolutely loved. And I got to watch all the Polish babushka ladies doing things out in the fields. And by the time we got to Krakow, it was late and we were so tired, we didn't go see anything. So we're looking forward to seeing this beautiful, beautiful city, which was the capital of Poland up until the 16th century. This city, Krakow, was best known for a man named Karol Wojtyła, who in the 1970s was first the bishop of Krakow, then later became the cardinal of Krakow, and in 1978, he was elected Pope John Paul II. Poland is the most religious country in Europe. Interestingly enough, the Czech Republic is the least religious country in Europe, but the Catholic faith is exceedingly strong in Poland, and this man is revered. He's been dead for what, 16, 18 years, but he is just revered by the people in Poland. In Krakow, we're going to see the old wonderful sites, the old town square. If you like old and you like scenic, you will like this very much. We'll go to St. Mary's Basilica, which was built in the 13th century when construction started. It was the national basilica for years. Kings were crowned there, kings were buried there. In fact, in 2010, there was a horrible plane crash, and the president of Poland, his wife, and much of his administration were all killed, and the funerals were all held here. Go to the next picture. Get used to doing this. There's going to be a lot of that on the trip. These amazing, gorgeous, ornate churches. Go to the next one. All over Europe, we will see a lot of these churches. You might get a little tired of churches like this, but you're going to see a lot of these beautiful churches. This church was extensively renovated in the 1990s and the early 2000s. But again, a church that is 800 years old and had a lot of work done in the meantime. We're also going to go to Wawel Castle. It's W-A-W-E-L, it's Wawel Castle, the former palace of the kings of Poland, and this was the capital. The oldest part, one of these towers, actually dates to the 10th century. The castle was begun in the 1300s, and work was done on it for 400 years. And again, in typical palaces, you will see all these beautiful, beautiful things. Again, the chapel, that's the chapel. That's not the church, that's the chapel, private chapel in the castle. And again, to show you what this part of the world is, archaeologists believe people have been living at this site for 100,000 years. So it's a very old site, and it's a World Heritage site, and just gorgeous. Next one, please. And there's a legend which you'll hear about. I had to be up because I never heard about it. It's about the dragon of Wawel Castle. Just as England has St. George who slayed the dragon, in Polish mythology, Saint Stanislaus, he killed this dragon. There are all kinds of caves underneath the mound on which Wawel Castle is built. And in tradition, the dragon.
I think somehow we muted it.
I didn't do it. I didn't touch it.
And I did. Wilson. Sorry.
Sorry. In Polish tradition, the monster, the dragon, lived underneath in one of those caves. He was killed, but they now have this metal dragon breathing fire 24/7, which you will probably get to see. Okay. And from Krakow, we are going to head to here's Krakow, and we're going to head to this place. There's a town called Oświęcim, Germans called it Auschwitz. And we're going to go to the two camps at Auschwitz, Birkenau. So we're going to go from someplace gorgeous to someplace horrible. This map shows all of the concentration camps the Germans had scattered around Germany in all the occupied territories. It also has the sites where the Germans just eradicated the Jews. Go next. Auschwitz it's about as stark a place as you can imagine, with a horrible history, but also it is a testimony to resilience and hope and life. Most of you have probably seen the sign over the gate, Arbeit macht frei, work makes you free, is what the Germans said. This is where many of the prisoners came into Auschwitz. There are two camps. Auschwitz was a prison camp. It was also an execution site, but it was very much a prison camp. We'll go next one. And then there was Birkenau. Birkenau is a few miles away. It was built shortly after Auschwitz opened, after the Germans conquered Poland in 1939. They opened this camp a short time later. Birkenau was basically an extermination. Next one. This is actually an aerial view of Birkenau taken in 1944. The Allies weren't really sure what this place was. Two prisoners escaped in the mid 40s. They got to Russia, and they shared what these places were. But people had a hard time believing that something like this existed. Birkenau had dozens and dozens of barracks where prisoners were held. It had the rail that came in, and off to the back, it had the extermination sites. The Germans, shortly before the Russians came in, took over, occupied, freed, liberated Auschwitz in early 1945. They burned down most of the camp to cover up what they were doing. There were about 60,000 prisoners there at the time. 45,000 were force marched away, and many of them died on the way. And then I'll talk about when the Russians came. Auschwitz-Birkenau, it wasn't just Jews, although it was mostly Jews whom the Germans oppressed. Again, the Nazi hatred of the Jews. It's hard for us to fathom what that meant. But this is just a photograph from Auschwitz. These are people who have been there a while because they're wearing the striped pajamas, okay? That means they're prisoners. You will see, in my mind, this building here is the worst building in the history of the world. It was the S in Auschwitz. Outside of this building is a courtyard, and at the end of the courtyard is that wall. Next one. This is what the Germans did in that courtyard. They would execute prisoners constantly. They would bring them out of the building to the right, walk them out into this courtyard, and then they'd just shoot them. And their bodies would be taken off. It's such a stark thing to see. When we were there in 2008, the beautiful blue sky above, and looking at that wall and just thinking of what happened there. In the building that I showed you to the right, it was SS administrative offices, but in the basement, there were special rooms. In one of those rooms, a man named Father Maximilian Kolbe died. The Germans had a policy. If a prisoner escaped from one of their camps, the Germans would take 10 prisoners at random next to them. And at Auschwitz, a prisoner escaped. So the Germans picked 10 prisoners at random. One of them was a Polish man who had a wife and children. Father Kolbe was a Catholic priest who was a prisoner, and he volunteered to take the place of that Polish man. And the Germans agreed. And the way they killed him is there's a room in the basement, which you will see. They locked them in the room and left. They just left Father Kolbe and a couple of other men in the room to die. Just locked them up, no food, no water, just left them. In the end, Father Kolbe, he lived long enough where the Germans came in and gave him a fatal injection. But Father Kolbe has now been canonized by the Roman Catholic Church. And this is John Paul II in that room, which you'll see today. When you see that room, there is a shrine in there. Remembering this amazing man of faith. You know, Jesus says, no greater love has someone that you give up your life for your friends. And Father Kolbe gave up his life for someone he didn't even know. But again, what a testimony of faith in this horrible place. Upstairs in that room, you will see we'll go down a hallway and you will see where the SS administrative offices are. And now the walls are lined with these. And these are photographs of prisoners who came into Auschwitz. When the Nazis came in, they shaved their heads, They tattooed them and they took their pictures. The Germans were very methodical about how they did things. And what really struck me when I walked down this hallway is there's a young girl and she's smiling. I have no idea if she lived or died at Auschwitz, but that was just such a powerful moment to me. You know, here's this young girl, probably a teenager, who in the most horrible place in the world, she tried to get a smile. And again, that talks to us about the human resilience in the midst of all these terrible things. Auschwitz was a labor camp, also had gas chambers, people were executed. Birkenau was basically an execution site. It was an extermination camp. And these are the rail tracks, which you will see. They go in between those gates, and inside there, which you'll get to go and see. Don't go real long way, at least we didn't when we were there. But you will see the platforms on which at which the trains would be emptied. In May of 1944, the Germans deported 400,000 Hungarian Jews, and they took them to Birkenau. If you want to look it up, there's a wonderful documentary. A number of years ago, someone discovered a photo album made by one of the German officers at Birkenau, in which he photographed and he documented what happened in this place. When the trains were unloaded, all the prisoners got off the trains, and then they were broken up into categories: male, female, young, old, children. Excellent. Again, here, these are Jews, Hungarian Jews probably, who have been offloaded at Birkenau. You can see they have the Stars of David. They got there not having a clue what was going to happen. The Germans just said, we are going to resettle you. In 1944, the Russians were coming from the east. Germans were pulling out of all the occupied territory, and the Germans said, we're taking you out of here. We will be settled. They had no idea what would happen. These are some of the lucky ones. These women, their heads are shaved. This is right after they arrived. But if your head was shaved, very often that meant you weren't going to be killed. And so these women, these are all women, they would probably be put to work either in local factories, in the camp itself, or in local farms. So not everyone was executed, but the majority were next one. Old people and kids were killed outright. These are Hungarian Jewish women and 3 children, and they're marching out to their death. And they have not had a clue what's going to happen. Within an hour, they will be dead. Again, the Germans marched them to a field, a little wooded area, out in the back of the camp, and said, sit down here, and we're going to give you a shower, because you've been in these train cars for a couple of days. So we're going to give you a nice shower, clean you up, and then you get settled in at the camp. And so these are again, innocent Jewish, these are mostly kids sitting in this field without a clue what's about to happen to them. This one I came across. This is a clandestine photograph. It's not much to look at, but this was actually taken by someone secretly of Jewish women who've been stripped, and they are being marched to the gas chambers at Birkenau. The Germans, of course, covered everything up, but some evidence, some photos were snuck out, and they're powerful testimony to what the Germans did. This is one of the gas chambers. It was ostensibly it's a shower. The Germans said, take off your clothes, hang up. We're going to go in here. You're going to get a nice shower. You're going to get deloused so you're nice and clean. And so the people would come into this room thinking this is a shower. The doors would be closed. And then from holes in the roof, the Germans would dump in Zyklon gas, which would kill out everyone in the shower, in the gas chamber, hundreds at a time. Hundreds at a time. The Germans were killing thousands upon thousands every week. And then they had the crematoria. You'll see, I think you'll be able to see the crematoria. After a while, the Germans were killing so many people that they had to store bodies underground, and then they just started burning them outside. But again, you know, the ruthless, heartless efficiency of the Nazis just boggles the mind, but it was real. Another horrible thing the Germans did is they took everything from the prisoners. When the prisoners came in, they had to leave their luggage, they had to leave their personal goods, and then those from the camp. And these women are healthy and they have their hair. So these are probably Germans who worked at the camp, going through all the possessions brought into the camp by the deportees. And when you go to Auschwitz, you will be taken into a room that shows you what the Germans did. This is human here. This is human here. The Germans, they shaved the people who came into the camp, and they used it. They would use it for pillows, they would use it for wigs, they would use it for whatever else you use it for. You'll see a room that are one of these display cases that has nothing but glasses. You'll see one that is children's shoes. The one that hit me the most was there's one room where on display are the suitcases of those who came to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and then their names and their addresses are on the suitcases here 80 years later. It's just gut-wrenching to think what happened. In January of 1945, the advancing Russians come east to west. They liberated Birkenau, they liberated Auschwitz, next one, and there were only about 6,000 prisoners alive. The rest had either been killed or they had been forcibly removed. And these are some of the, you can't call them lucky, but these are some of the women who survived. They're from Birkenau, and you will be able to go in and peek in at least one or two of these barracks. It's still there, sleeping on wooden bunks that have no mattresses in filth and squalor. Okay. Rudolf Höss was the commandant of Auschwitz. After the war, he was found guilty in one of the war crimes trials. He was actually taken back to Auschwitz, and he was hanged outside of the gas chamber. His gallows still stands, and you will see where it's one of these horrible, horrible people was put to death. You know, one of hundreds of Germans who paid the price for what they had done. And again, it's just, you shudder. You shudder to think of the cruel coldness that led to murder over 6 million people, plus the deaths of countless other millions because of what the Nazis stood for. Okay. And then we will, and you go, oh. And one of my favorite parts of this trip was after you leave Auschwitz, you have a wonderful bus ride through the Polish and Czech countryside. And it's really beautiful. I just remember sitting in the bus. And where we drove by a big field. A field in the Czech Republic. A very famous field in the Czech Republic. Next one. Because in 1805, this was the scene of the Battle of Austerlitz. If any of you saw the recent movie on Napoleon with Phoenix, whatever his name is, Joachim Phoenix. Battle in Austerlitz in 1805. Napoleon defeated the Prussians and the Russians in a huge, great battle. There's a huge monument there, but you're driving by, here's a big field, and it says Battle of Auschwitz, or Battle of Austerlitz. Whoa, that's 200 years ago. Okay, that's just me. I was a history major, so I like it. And from there, we go to Prague. Gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful Prague. Perhaps the most charming and scenic city in all of Europe. A city that looks pretty much like it did 400, 500, 600 years ago. This is the Charles Bridge, which was built in the 16th, 17th century. Now, this is a woodcut from the 17th century. There's the bridge, just like it looks today. The castles, the basilicas, looking just like they do today. Because Prague was lucky. The Germans took over Czechoslovakia in early 1939. They just occupied it. And so Prague didn't see conflict during the war. It was just occupied by the Germans. So nothing was destroyed until the very, very end. And at the very end of the war, in the last weeks, the Germans pulled out, the Russians came in, the Germans did have their last bombing raid of the war was a bombing raid over Prague. It didn't do a lot of damage. It did destroy a few of the old places. But most of old Prague still exists, and we are so fortunate for that. And you're my age. You might remember in 1968, something called the Prague Spring, when Czechoslovakia was part of the Soviet East Bloc. But there was a man named Alexander Dubček, who was the premier, who tried to bring about some breaking away from the cruel Soviet fist that was upon them. And so there was this wonderful time called the Prague Spring when people were hopeful, maybe the Russians will let them go their own way, maybe the Russians will let them be free. That did not happen, because in August 1968, I remember I was 12 years old, my family, we were camping at a little resort up in Alexandria, Minnesota. And on the TV came the news that the Soviet army on that day in 1968, they just rolled in Prague and they crushed the uprising. It wasn't an uprising. They crushed the attempt to be a bit more free. Soviet control over the East would remain for another 21 years. In November 1989, when the wall came down, those of us old enough to remember, when the Berlin Wall came down, in much of Eastern Europe, the fall of communism was fairly peaceful. In Romania, there was conflict, and Nicolae Ceausescu, the dictator, he was executed. But in Prague, they had what they called the Velvet Revolution, as Eastern Bloc powers just kind of melted away, and the new democracy took place. And to celebrate that today in Prague, you will see this, and I don't know if we see this or not. That's a Soviet tank that they just painted pink to celebrate the downfall of communism and the freedom of the Czech. It was Czechoslovakia since back then. Since then, the map of Europe has changed a lot. It's now the Czech Republic and Slovakia, neighboring countries. We'll see some of the gorgeous, gorgeous sites. St. Vitus Cathedral. Those dates are correct. Okay, work on this cathedral took place from 1344 to 1929. If you've ever been on a church building committee? Right? It is an amazing, it is the Winchester, the Westminster Cathedral of the Czech Republic. You can go next one. This is where the kings of their history are buried. This beautiful, beautiful Gothic. Are these the buttresses? I don't know. Yeah, the buttresses, it is just magnificent. Again, the inside, you will walk around going, whoa, this is really something. The graves of the kings are all around the outside. Amazing stained glass windows, just mind-boggling. And my favorite part, the gargoyles on the outside. They serve a very, very basic purpose. They divert rainwater off the roof, but I just love it that they have constructed them so it looks like they're throwing them. And so you'll see the beautiful gargoyles that are there. Again, the Charles Bridge. We'll go across it. It's beautiful. That's all I can say. It's just lined with statues from the center. You were gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna correct you earlier.
Oh.
It was actually, the construction began in the 1350s because it began at the same time as the cathedral.
Okay, see, my daughter is, I know it all. And she's really smart, so I stand corrected. So she'll probably just have a buzzer on the trip when I say something.
We're gonna get you on, because just for the fun of it.
And again, the view of the bridge. We don't have anything like that here. So. And again, it's not the only bridge. There are lots of bridges through Prague, okay? And then we'll go to the old town square, which is the center of the town, best known for its clock. Okay, there's the square. The next one will give you the clock. It's beautiful, beautiful clock. People just love to go and watch. It's just amazing. In fact, the Basilica in Krakow at noon every day, they had the sound of a trumpet to remind the people of back in the 14th century when the Mongols were invading Poland. A soldier blew the trumpet to warn the people and was shot with an arrow and died. So every day at noon, they blow a trumpet to remember something that happened 600, 700 years ago. So the beautiful clock.
They need to know that's right across the street from Starbucks.
Which is the most important thing about going to Europe.
Starbucks, the hot chocolate store, right? The hot chocolate store.
Here's another view of the clock, just the statues all around it. I do not know the meaning of that. So those of you reading the books on Prague, you will probably know about that. And again, you'll have time to wander. These gorgeous buildings, these are probably 19th century, I imagine 18th, 19th century. But the color and the steps and everything else, next one, the beautiful, beautiful streets, in Prague. Okay, lots of restaurants where you can sit outside. I heard there's a very good gelato stand.
There's only one, right? Just one.
It's what a wonderful city to go around. The Jewish cemetery, the medieval Jewish cemetery is in Prague, not far from our hotel, from what I've been able to pick up on, okay? And then I'm gonna turn it over now because you have a free day in Prague. And some of you who've been to Prague, if you'd like to just share some ideas, just to get people thinking of what you might like to do when you're in Prague. So I will turn it over to those of you. If you want to talk, you get this. Go ahead. Okay, yeah, we'll start, then you can go.
I'm gonna take a lot of improvement, okay, and I was in Prague. So November 1989, they celebrated their religion. My daughter was in Luxembourg studying PhD, and I went with my other daughter, grabbed her when she finished in July, and we went directly to Prague. This is right after the Velvet Revolution. There was nobody. In fact, that Americans would be walking down the street, which is totally, they couldn't believe it. And some of them, foodies, having nothing good, that they recognized that we were Americans, we probably know Nikes and who knows what else. And so it was just an absolutely incredible experience. And we were with a translator, a guy, he spoke German and French. Jim spoke German, Justin spoke French, and then they interpreted for me. So one didn't understand, the other did. So we were there right on the cusp of this freedom that people could not imagine. And they were out in the streets, daring to celebrate. And we got in on that moment, in that move. So that was, for me, I never realized how important that was until now, when you hear the history and you know what's going on over there. So anyway, Paul mentioned the Jewish cemetery. At that time, we could walk in the Jewish cemetery, or we just walked in, and it was in the ghetto. Today, you can go there, but you have to pay. And you will probably get a guided tour. I've been there, I've been back there a couple of times, and my guess would be on the free day that might be something that you might like to take advantage of. We went on a guided tour with a man who was Jewish, spoke English, and had been through the whole experience. So for us, that was different. But I would like to think that today that experience would be really neat. I'm not so sure, but someone that I know rented a kayak and went kayaking on the Black River River. Now, I don't know if that really is something that is available for those of you that are adventuresome and like to do that kind of stuff. But we can check all that kind of stuff out when you're there. So, Dave and Cheryl, you have been there, so why don't you?
If you're a music lover, pay attention to the signs that you see in front of different churches and the city halls. We went to a fabulous concert. We just happened to see a sign, and they were doing the classic composers. So we listened to Mozart and Bach, and it was just such a treat to be in this fabulous building and listen to top-notch musicians that were brought from orchestras all over the Czech Republic to have their concerts in Prague. So that was a highlight for me. And yes, I am looking forward to going back to my favorite gelato shop, which is on the boulevard leading up to the National Museum. So Dave got some other things that he is looking forward to.
So I tell you, it's just like walking in neighborhoods. Prague is just a wonderful place for that. Where our hotel is right in the center of all that. And I would suggest you don't have to get it ahead of time, but to get some krona, their national currency, because you'll come across these markets that are just on these side streets, and they will basically only take cash for that. They want to pay a lot, but there's places to exchange money, so I'd suggest that. Cheryl and I, we love taking subways, and the subway system, we just take it to the end of the line, and then we just kind of walk around that neighborhood. We call them whack-a-mole tours, where we just kind of pop on. But they also have this great streetcar system there as well. These old streetcars that are taking you through all over the place. So you can just jump on that and just kind of see the neighborhood, as Paul said, just kind of watching that. One of my favorite places was with beer, Urquell. If you know Urquell beer, it's not the tastiest in the world. Right? You agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, it is not that neat, but it's a neat experience because we had this and it wasn't very good, so we went to their tour. And we thought, okay, they must have different beers, like what?
Don't tell them the whole story in case they don't.
This is true. You'll have to- You went to Prague, right? Over here?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, I'm not, I'm actually looking at one of the websites, and so, yeah, I was there about 15 years ago, and going back to the Jewish quarter, that was really interesting. I believe the synagogue was kind of some living street level, if I recall correctly, and it was, in the cemetery, there's probably tens of thousands of gravestones pretty much piled on top of each other. I don't know what we're actually doing on our days, so, probably podcast, I'm assuming, is that part of the, because that's where we're going to. I'm just looking because if anybody really loves opera or historic music, Don Giovanni is my favorite opera by Mozart, and he premiered that opera in an opera house in Prague. And I attended that, and it was like a surreal experience where it was just beautiful 300-400-year-old theater, and they restored it to the original decoration. And I bought tickets for Don Giovanni, where again he premiered that as a conductor. And when the house lights went down, I felt like I had this ghost in front of me. Briefly, I was just trying to see what they might have, and I'm on the website, yes, so I'm going to check that out. Another thing we did at night was a ghost tour. So if you imagine these 600-700-year-old buildings that are haunted, I love that kind of creepy stuff sometimes. Yes, I guess those are my initial thoughts. Anybody else?
There are all kinds of weird little museums around Prague that like, some of them are fairly tourist trappy, but like there's like an optical illusions museum where they have like rooms you can stand in where you can follow the shape. There's a medieval portrait museum. There's Art Nouveau artists, I'm sure you've seen his work with the Boston Standard There's things that are doing there. And again, I would just say again, just wander. It's great, especially in this day of smartphones. The first time I went was pre-smartphone, and I got very lost several times, panicking my parents as their teenage daughter wanted to drive Europe to help them. But just if you have a smartphone, just get lost. Walk down the street, turn some corners, see what you see. And the other thing about Prague, wear really, really sturdy shoes because all the streets are these little square cobblestones. By the end of the day, your feet will be killing you. So just make sure that you have really good shoes on.
Thank you. These are the kind of things to talk about on the family. Karen and I got to stand and walk down the river and watch people fish. That was part of our creating. You can do my last slide. Oh, you took it off, never mind.
Let me put it back
You
up.
don't have to put it
Oh, okay.
back. Today I talked about Prague and how it escaped the war. Next time I'll talk about Dresden and how it did not escape the war of Dresden, which was obliterated by an Allied bombing attack right near the end of the war. But again, watch videos, read books, get familiarized, so you know what's going to happen. So I'll turn it over to Gail and Chris to talk about some of the nuts and bolts kind of things. Thanks for all you shared.
One thing is going to talk about, what not. What not. This comment is a little bit disturbing from the last that I was on. Who lost the suitcase?
She didn't lose it, just so you know.
Yeah, yeah.
We had one, this, we were invited, never got it till we got.
Oh, I didn't get mine. Yeah, hers was just,
Yeah, we had a great shopping trip, I have. to say.
yeah, we did.
Also had to be said. All right, just be careful when you're packing that you don't stick something in your suitcase that has a lithium battery in it. I actually didn't know why, and I had to ask Dale. He said, because if they're on the underside of the plane, and they happen to explode and set fire, you've got a problem on there. And you caused it by not putting your lithium battery, iPhone, iPad, for the PC, whatever you're gonna take with you that has batteries, you have to be careful. So don't put that in your check luggage. Medicine, don't put it in check luggage. Your cosmetics, women, if you really need them, don't put it in check luggage. And they also recommended you have to change your clothes, and I think you were smart enough that you had one pair of underwear.
May I add something? When our experience, maybe you'll heard this, somebody suggested 50-50, the two suitcases. So if one gets lost, you've got half of your other partner's clothes. I thought that seemed like a pretty good idea. That's something to consider.
Which, that isn't a bad idea, which might imply that you might bring a carry-on, send it to
Well,
me, rather than a backpack or something like that, right, yeah, that is one of the, okay, I think, that's really, I really don't have anything else that is important. You've all traveled, you know, and you know how you act, and you found what works best for you. So I think, I'm just not gonna talk anymore. Is that okay, Chris? I don't-
Sure.
The masters like to talk.
We might,
I've got an hour, right?
That's summertime or?
no.
I thought you weren't talking anymore. You're still
I
talking?
forgot about-
Oh, okay.
Notice the travel time on here, which is really kind of helpful. Paul talked about the distance between Krakow or Auschwitz and Prague. And then the drive between Prague and Dresden, you are really going to feel like you're in Germany, in the Alpine, in the it almost feels like Christmas is gonna happen as you're traveling through the mountain areas and beautiful flower boxes. And it's not Christmassy, but it just feels like what you think it might be looking like during Christmas time. It's a beautiful ride. So you're enjoying the countryside, and it's really enjoying the countryside. And your short hops in Germany are very short hops between the different villages. Once you get to Berlin, then you're settled in, and you won't see that bus except for, you know, just traveling around Berlin. So it's really a well thought out trip, and it always works so well. So I think you are going to enjoy just the ease of it, and it's going to feel like you have so much fun. I think you're going to enjoy that. Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm not gonna say too much more either. I know a lot of us have really traveled quite a bit, and so, you know, there's not much more we're gonna be able to tell you. If you do wanna stay around, for those that are maybe newer, feeling a little nervous, we're happy to talk and answer questions that way. Is there anything that anyone really wants to say, hey, remember this, or don't forget that, or? We will have another meeting at the end. That's often like the key time when you really dig into, okay, now we really need to not forget these things. The company is going to be here at the last meeting too, bringing documents and things for us. So they'll be able to answer any really nuts and bolts questions about this and that and stuff like that. Do people feel like they've got a good handle on the trip, and you don't have any questions or anything?
Good, next question.
Okay, yeah, Ben.
Shoes, Chris.
Shoes.
Particularly, I see Rick cobblestone streets and so on.
Yeah, Samantha had a great point. You know, a little firmer sole so that, you know, I won't say hiking boots, but you want to be comfortable, that's key. One of my worst experiences was having a lady who was so excited about her new shoes. New shoes. And all I heard for about 4 days was ow, ow, ow. And that was all through Israel, it was horrible. So, you know, if nothing else, break them in, but it's good to have shoes that have a firmer base to them, so all the cobblestones and a little bit of rough stones that you're walking on.
And anyone would feel more comfortable with a cane or walking stick? If you feel more comfortable with a cane or a walking stick, bring it, please.
Yep, that's a great thing to have. They've got ones that collapse easily into your suitcases, those are great to have. Give you a little bit of strength, because it is, I mean, that's the charm of the streets, right? But it's also why we appreciate the nicely paved roads that are nice and smooth. But having a decent shoe that's very comfortable, but at the same time, I don't want to call them hiking shoes, but you know, a firmer sole to them. So, does that help? Very good. So, you know, you want to be comfortable on this trip. You know, you're not on the trip to impress everyone. You know, we're all here to just really enjoy ourselves, relax and be a part of the group. And so don't feel like you have to really impress everybody. Pat always impresses me, but you don't have to do that with everyone, right? You do.
So I'd like
Some
to
of my favorite photos were of Pat, so.
I guess you could look at, what's typical weather in October?
It's cooler.
Very much like it is here in the United States.
Okay, the
It's not
same.
at that much.
Okay.
difference.
Hopefully not 90 degrees in this.
So it won't be super hot, but at the same time, going through a little bit of this, those seasons are changing. Late fall, which will be really
Do they tend
comfortable.
to have rainy days or not so?
I think they're predicting, you know, probably a little bit of rain, hopefully not too much. So you're gonna wanna have some sort of light jacket to put on. Yeah, you always talk layers, right? So you can take off a sweatshirt or a sweater or whatever, if you need to, if you're getting a little warm, you can take off a layer, put it on if you're getting cold. Some things like that. So. Yeah, it's.
Asking for a couple of friends who use CPAP machines at night. I was wondering if we would encounter challenges with our electrical devices.
And, I forget how much, amperage, CPAP will take up, but it's a lot. So,
Well, I'm more concerned with the.
So they're
Is
all-
your- you know, is your-
110?
but, I mean, we're gonna have good electrical systems, though.
You need adapters though.
You definitely have to have an
Yeah,
adapter.
220. Yeah, no.
So,
Well, and make sure that, I'm not sure, uses to say, Europe is so weird with the shape of the plugs in different places, so
Okay.
make sure to Google what, because sometimes you'll cross a border and they'll use completely different plugs, so. it's
So everyone knows adapters,
Yeah.
have about 3 different.
Yeah, so just make sure.
if you don't have an adapter already, and you're looking to get one, I can put out a link for you. Nowadays, they've got adapters that, you know, for pretty much every country in the world, you can flip it around, switch it, but it also will adjust to the voltage and things like that, which is really helpful. Plus, it will have USB ports on it for putting in your USB, plugging your phones and things like that. But, usually it's something that's like a hair dryer, that's really pulling a lot of power. I would say don't bring a hair dryer because every hotel will have them, so you shouldn't need to bring those. But those are usually the challenges, like the time in Africa when I plugged mine in, I got to see the wall start on fire. First night, I was really interested. They weren't so excited. So I don't think CPAPs will be that difficult for their system though. So that's my sense. I've never heard anybody say it was a problem, so. It's more just getting converted to their system, and it's the European plug, which is very prominent, so.
Yeah, no, I am double
Is that
checking.
the one we use in Switzerland or something?
It's not gonna be bad.
Yeah, no, I'm just double checking.
They're two
And
round
in
plugs,
Poland and the Czech Republic, it looks like.
might be a little
they still
different.
use
Yeah, okay.
That's not our problems, three little problems that
So-
the rest of Europe is.
Nowadays, they really have these nice blocks that you just, you push out the one that you're in and it retracts and. I just saw one it's about 50, so it's not cheap, but it all does everything for you. It converts the voltage and everything, so things like that are kind of nice. But most of us are gonna be plugging in our phone. Which is low voltage, it barely, it's trickle, I mean, it's trickling, so stuff like that is not, all you're really worrying about is just being that converter, so. But I'll put out a link for that, so you can all see what it is, but.
Water is drinkable.
Water is potable, yeah, so it's all drinkable, So, yeah. Food's gonna be wonderful.
Do they have public restrooms that you have to pay for?
Do you have to have, I forget if we had to have like quarters or,
In Poland, most restrooms are paid. At least I was-
often if you're in a restaurant, it's gonna have it.
Yeah.
So, it's only in like a public square, if you're trying to find a bathroom, they can probably do that. So. Cover the total.
And Poland has the zloty, that's their currency.
Poland's a zloty.
Czech Republic is the krona, and then Germany's on the euro.
So, I mean, pretty much every bank nowadays, you can say, I want a little bit of this and that. And you have to order it, so you usually, what, 2 weeks? 2 weeks to give notice, so you might wanna do that, just to have a little bit of cash, it's kind of fun to have too, right?
Yeah.
Part of the traveling, so you wanna speak to that?
No, I just said we usually try to get it, you know,
A little bit.
maybe a month before or something.
Yeah, shoot for a month before, just to make sure you've got enough time to do that. There are certain banks in town, I think US Bank, I believe is one of them that just has it, you can go there, but if you're not, they might charge you a surcharge for making but most of your banks will be able to order it, they just won't have it ready in stock. So. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Is there a suitcase size that is required?
We can put that out, it's a standard suitcase size, I mean, I believe it's one checked, right? One
No, I
checked,
meant the dimensions, how carry them?
we can get that out earlier, but yeah, each airline's a little bit different, but we're gonna be having a decent size, I think Spirit is one that, like, you have to be like a 30-pound, and nobody has a 30-pound, so that's how they get their money, they charge you the upcharge for the full-size suitcase, it's like, wait a minute, I thought I was saving money. And we'll charge you coming back too, that'll be great. So yeah, but we can put that on standard size. So.
That's good.
So, I mean, certain people love to bring everything with them. Certain people would rather really travel light, just do a carry-on. I bring a lot of electronics, so I'll make sure not to put it underneath them. Right? All my batteries that I'll have. I think I usually bring about 20 batteries, so. We have fun.
Then the rest of us be on a different plane.
So, I mean, can I get that? It'll be, I don't check it because I want to make sure it comes with. I lost a $3,000 lens, like after I worked, they labeled it as checked by security. Like robbed by security. So I keep my stuff that I really care about. So I won't lose my electronics, but I want it to close.
You always got like about four.
Yes,
five
suitcases.
Oh, that's true. I'm good at Chris for the close. That was a horrible experience. We all felt bad first. So it is helpful to split some things up.
If you haven't traveled with Chris, he takes 37,000 photos
Yeah.
and he makes them all available.
Yes.
Not quite 37.
I've been on. And it's stand around, you have to do the circle.
Yeah.
Hey, you had fun doing that.
That was
didn't you?
nice.
We had fun doing it.
You're still doing it, I see.
I'm still doing it, yes. I'm working on a new one, so. These trips encourage me to buy new stuff. So, any other questions? If you're welcome to stay around afterwards, if you want to have specific questions. But, otherwise, it's gonna be a wonderful trip. Really looking forward to it. We've got a great group. We do have, I don't think I told you, but we have 3 people that are on the wait list that would love to come, but we are full right now, so. So I've gotten several emails recently saying, "Is it anything open up?" So it should be a great trip. We've got a nice group. And it should be a lot of fun. So, and a wonderful, band experience too, and looking at our. So we'll learn why we all have to sit in the last row of the pews. The first that arrived, they get tired. I was at a church recently, the entire church sat in the last 3 rows. I'm like, there were 20 rows and I'm like, really? So, I don't know what that is.
Dad calls him out. She says he's gonna
Get up here.
First Jim, everybody to the front.
I don't know why they don't roll them off, but anyway. Well, but thank you for coming out. We'll have one more. Are we sticking with that date?
We have to know, because my wife's father turns 100 on 5/13. He has a VA vision appointment the day of our last meeting. We're not sure if he's gonna still be here or not, so we hope he will be, but
We would plan that he'll still be.
we're kind of playing it by ear. He's in hospice care, so, but he's doing okay now.
I don't think he needs that last
Well, so, we'll let you know if we need to adjust that a little bit, but like you said, the company will be with us at that meeting, and answer any lots of those questions. It's a great chance to just, what time do we have to be here at church before we leave, and things like that. So we are parking cars here like we did with the other trips.
Are you gonna be video again?
Are we gonna have video? Say it again. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Every one of these I've been trying to do. And so that's it. And yeah, we will do that as well.
What is that?
Did you just say something about parking cars?
Yes, so we will have the coach bus here. So we will park cars here, and you can leave here for the week, we'll get on the bus, it'll take us to O'Hare. And so you don't have to beat us in O'Hare and pay for parking for the week and things like that. So it's nice that St. John's does that. So yeah, so, and then they'll obviously bring us back here, so, which would be great too, so. Is there another question? All right. Well, again, really looking forward to this. It's gonna be a great trip, and, please send us emails, ask us questions if you have any questions. If you have something you're like, oh, everybody needs to know this, share it, we'll share that out to everyone as well, so. So great. I am gonna try and, if you haven't given me a photo yet of yourself, like a headshot, please do send me an email. Next time, if we haven't done that, I can take some last photos. And it's a nice way to just have a directory, so you can kind of go, oh yeah, what was her name again? And
Are you gonna use last summer's or?
I'll use that same system and put some of that out, so, was that helpful?
Yes.
Okay. So it's just a website that, has a directory, it'll have some helpful information, where we're gonna be, and that kind of stuff, so. The trip videos that if you want to go back and watch. If there's a YouTube video that you're like, oh, that Rich Steve was so awesome, we gotta see it, we can put links like that up on there too, so you can watch those. Right, otherwise, let's just close with prayer, and then again, if you want to stay, you're welcome to do that. Let's pray. Dear great and gracious God, thank you so much for summertime. It's just wonderful to enjoy the warmth and sun and the beauty of the season. Thank you for helping us to prepare and get ready. We thank you for Pastor Paul's study and all that he knows that he's sharing with us. We're really blessed by that. Thank you for Gail and all she's bringing to this trip. It's just wonderful to travel together and be your people, experiencing all these things and celebrating the goodness of your grace, your love, and the presence of community together. Bless us during this time of preparation. Keep us safe so that we can go on the trip, and it just really help us to have a great experience as we prepare for October. We thank you for all these things, and in your name we pray. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jan. See ya. So when they come, the next time when they have our plane tickets, I mean, I'd like